Well, let's turn now to the view from a Conservative MP. Michael Fabricant is the MP for Lichfield and is defending the Prime Minister and joins me in the studio now. Michael, I'm sure not many of your colleagues are envious of this position of trying to defend something that really has angered quite a lot of the country.
Well, what I'm keen is that for people to understand the circumstances. It's not for me to judge whether it was legal or whether it was illegal. It's not only Sue Gray investigating this, but we now understand the Metropolitan Police are investigating this too. So they'll make the decision on that. But I think it's important for people to understand the context of all this. First of all, you know, when you watch television, you see the front of 10 Downing Street, you think it's very, very small. In fact, it's 3 buildings knocked into one and also connected with a building in Whitehall, the Cabinet Office. There are around 100 offices there. And I know at that period that we're talking about, people were working long hours, 18, 19-hour days, absolutely exhausted, to deliver actually one of the best vaccine programmes in the world. And that's generally accepted. So the question is this. I think if Boris has a weakness, that weakness is loyalty to people who work for him and loyalty to his friends. Now, look, you had these people working in closely together in enclosed, stuffy offices, and some of them are really quite small offices. And if they had this drinks party, which I think we now have to assume they did, it was then moving out into the garden to do it. No outside people were invited at all. It was the same key workers, and don't forget they were designated as key workers, which has a meaning in law, and that's something that I know Sue Gray will be looking at. And then they went into the garden for drinks. So simply from an epidemiological point of view, there's less chance of them spreading the disease than when in those 18 hours they were stuffed in the offices together.
Now, I'm sure not many people would dispute that. The problem seems to be that that same epidemiological view wasn't applied to people in other settings. People who, for example, were working in hospitals or indeed media organisations. Technically, I'm a key worker. I wasn't allowed to go out and sit in the garden with my colleagues and have drinks. Isn't the hypocrisy angle here what really gets at people?
Yes, I understand that. And I know plenty of people in my own constituency in Lichfield and Burntwood who feel very much as you've just expressed. But I would also put it to you that this is a controlled, almost military-controlled area around Downing Street. And the garden is an integral part, absolutely an integral part, of the Downing Street complex. So it was an enclosed system, if you see what I mean. Here at GBNews, or indeed at New Broadcasting House, the BBC, they don't have such an enclosed, open space, if that doesn't sound a contradiction in terms. So I don't think that analogy is the same.
So there were lots of people in Number 10 who clearly didn't feel comfortable about this email. Dominic Cummings has said that he replied to it saying he didn't think this was within the rules. We hear that only around 30 of the 100 that were invited turned up.
Well, that I might say is because most of them wanted to get home to bed because they'd literally been working so long. But yes, no, I mean, you make a very important point, Tom. Yes, it may not have been against the rules, and that, as I say, is something that's being determined. But it's not black and white. And Darren McCaffrey was saying, and you were asking him, how long is this inquiry going to go on for? And the reason why it's not black and white, the reason why it's so confusing, is why it's taking so long to actually resolve where the rules were broken.
Many people will say the rules had some clear exemptions for work purposes, and indeed working in those 100 offices, whether or not that was contradictory to basic epidemiological principles, those were the rules. The rules didn't say people could have drinks, could have parties, could socialise. And this, looking at that email, looked like it was an entirely social, not work event.
Well, you know as well as I do that when colleagues meet, they do tend to talk about work. And again, it all goes back, if you like, to Boris's great flaw, his loyalty. Because Darren McCaffrey was talking about the position of the polls as they are at the moment. And when did that all start? It started with the Owen Paterson affair. And that was a question not of trying to defend actually Owen Paterson, but whether the process had been right. And that's why he was keen to support an amendment. We won't go into that now. But again, it's a symptom of what I think is a rather lovely quality. We've got a very imaginative Prime Minister, a Prime Minister who is someone with ideas. You know, we've had Prime Ministers for so long now who are boring managers. I could name them, but I won't. And some of them have been Labour and some of them have been Conservative. And I think it's rather nice to have a Prime Minister who's a visionary, who got Brexit done in a rather unusual way, some would say, with the prorogation and all the rest of it that he had to do, but he got it done. And as I say, I think his weaknesses are actually something that I find rather attractive. And what was he trying to do? He was saying, look, guys, you've all worked together in a very difficult situation, in a situation where you could have all caught COVID together, as he did at number 10 Downing Street and almost lost his life. It's a lovely sunny day. Let's have a break. Now, it may have broken the rules. It may not. We'll find out. But you know what? The motives were the right motives, and it was a controlled environment with no outsiders coming in.
Now, I remember that many people will see those sunny days. Well, if I was sitting for many of those sunny days in a small flat. At one point, at the beginning of this lockdown, I was told off by the police for sitting on a public piece of grass by myself outside my flat and told to get back inside my flat. Now, when people have experiences like that, and then you may well be saying that the Prime Minister was thinking that people were working hard and deserved a break. Well, lots of the country will have thought that they deserved a break too. Isn't this just a fundamental problem here of one rule for people within number 10 who think they can do what they like and have as many breaks as they want and socialise, whereas the rest of the country was suffering under draconian and, in some respects, anti-epidemiological rules?
Well, that argument is something that certainly chimes with many people. I understand that, and I have people writing to me in my constituency saying just that, but not in such eloquent terms. But again, I would say, you were not a key worker. You were not working in an environment where they happen to have a garden, which is part of the office area, a garden which others could not join. So there was no risk of spreading the disease. This is what people have to understand. Now, look, I'm arguing it from an epidemiological point of view, not the legal point of view. And I do understand. I mean, a friend of mine is the mayor of the West Midlands, Andy Street, and he's got a flat in the centre of Birmingham. It has windows, but it doesn't have a balcony, and he was feeling incredibly claustrophobic. I do understand that. I was luckier in Lichfield. I've got a sort of little terrace thing in Lichfield. But I do understand that. And, of course, I understand the anger too. But my reason for coming on this programme today is just to give the alternative argument, which nobody is really articulating at the moment, that A, these were key workers, and B, this was a controlled area, and no one who had not already been crammed together for 18 hours or so each day. I mean, you would not believe the hours these people were working in closed, confined offices, you know, were now going out into another controlled area, actually a garden, where there was less chance of it spreading.
Now, just finally, in a word, Martin Reynolds, if he was found to have broken the rules with that email, not the Prime Minister, Martin Reynolds, should he go?
I'm not going to make that judgment. An interesting question, but you tempt me. But on this one, I'm not going to say.
Well, Michael Fabricant, thank you for your spirited defence of the Prime Minister there.